Good day, students. My name is Dr. Faiza Gani, and I am the lecturer for your module LPENGTS, English Language Proficiency for Teachers. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this examination revision. In this examination revision, I will be covering two sections, namely Section A and Section B. In Section A, I look at a brief summary of your study units, and in Section B, I briefly speak to your upcoming examination. Let us begin with Study Unit 1, which speaks to the topic of writing as a process. If you read through the study unit, you will find that writing is described as a process. This implies that you will follow various stages when you engage in a writing task. These stages include pre-writing, in which you generate ideas about the topic. Next, you move on to drafting, in which you write spontaneously without correcting what you have written. Thirdly, you move to the revision stage, in which you discuss your writing with peers and get feedback from other people. Next, you incorporate the feedback that you have received, and you do your final proofreading and editing of your writing piece. I now proceed to Study Unit 2, which speaks about the writer's journal. Your study guide describes a writer's journal is a written record of your daily experiences and activities in the classroom. Writing about professional and academic matters is beneficial for teachers. A writer's journal is beneficial in helping you reflect on your teaching practices as well as for improving your writing skills. It is also beneficial in sharpening expression and organization of your thinking. I therefore encourage you to keep a writer's journal for your classroom practice. Let us now move on to Study Unit 3, which speaks about the structure of written text. As a student, it is important for you to be aware of the structure of written text for two reasons. First, it assists with reading comprehension, and secondly, it assists you in sharpening your writing skills. When we speak about the structure of written text, we look at the aspects of paragraphs, topic sentences, and detailed sentences. A paragraph is described as an organized group of sentences which is related to one topic and indicates the sections as well as subdivisions of a piece of writing. It controls and it supports one main idea called the topic sentence. We also need to look at the aspect of detailed sentences, which is different from a topic sentence. In fact, it supports, it explains, and it gives further examples. For more information about paragraphs, about topic sentences, and detailed sentences, I encourage you to read Study Unit 3. Study Unit 3 also speaks to the concept of mind mapping, which you are familiar with as you did complete a mind map for your second assignment. A mind map focuses on arranging and presenting information visually. It is about grouping information that belong together. When you do a mind map, it is important to only extract the main ideas from the text and to use keywords to indicate the main ideas of a text. I now take you to Study Unit 4 and 12, which I have combined as they are similar in nature. These study units speak to the topic of text and context, as well as the importance of audience, situation, and purpose. There are various types of text. Some examples include spoken language, written text, and pictures. Texts are influenced by a variety of factors. These include the audience, the purpose of the text, the relationship between the speaker and the audience, and the situation in which communication takes place. For example, if you write an email communication to your lecturer, it would be very different in nature to a WhatsApp, for example, that you send to your friend. Text in context also is influenced by I now proceed to study Unit 4 and 12, which I have combined as they are similar in nature. The topic of these study units is text and context, as well as the importance of audience, situation, and purpose. There are various types of text. Some examples include spoken language, written text, pictures, and so forth. Texts are influenced by a variety of factors. These include the audience at which the text is targeted, the purpose of the text, the relationship between the speaker and the audience, and the situation in which communication takes place. For example, if you type an email communication to your lecturer, it would be very different in nature to a WhatsApp that you would perhaps type to your friend. When speaking about text in context, we also look at the aspects of register and tone. Register is indicated by words and sentence patterns used. Different situations would require a different types of register. Tone, on the other hand, is related to the feeling and the attitude of the writer. Some examples of tone in speech and writing is impersonal, personal, ironic, etc. Tone is conveyed through the words and the expression used by the writer. I now move on to study Unit 5, which covers techniques for reading written text. Different types of exercises will require different techniques for reading. For example, if you are studying for examination, the type of reading you would be expected to engage in would be very different from the type of reading you would use, for example, when reading a recipe. Your study guide refers to the past idea. This is a very useful reading technique for developing critical reading strategies. Skimming is another type of reading technique in which you read fast to gain a general impression of the text. Some examples for when we skim include skimming to preview, skimming to survey, and skimming to review. Scanning is another type of reading technique discussed in Study Unit 5, which refers to fast reading when we look for something specific. Some examples include looking at examination results, studying a table of contents, looking through a dictionary. The type of reading technique that you would select would depend on the purpose for why you are reading. I now proceed to study Unit 6, which speaks about Unit 6, which covers the aspect of using the dictionary. Dictionaries are very useful for improving reading comprehension as well as writing. For example, if you are reading a text and you come across unfamiliar words, you can consult your dictionary to find the meaning of the word. By doing so, you start developing a vocabulary bank for yourself, which you can use in future to improve your writing skill as well. Dictionaries contain different kinds of information. I encourage you to complete the activities in Study Unit 6 as it will help you in sharpening your use of the dictionary as well as expose you to the different types of information available in a dictionary. I will now look at Study Unit 7, which speaks about techniques for reading graphic text. This study unit speaks about the aspect of visual literacy, which refers to the ability to interpret visual images. Examples of visual images include cinema, television, photography, graphics, cartoons, and so forth. Interpreting maps, graphs, and tables is also part of visual literacy. If we think about the world in which we live in today, visual literacy has become an important skill. One only has to think about social media, such as Facebook, in which the use of photos and pictures has changed the way in which people communicate. As such, it is important to become visually literate to navigate oneself in the world that we live in today. I now move on to study Units 8 and 9, which covers the topics of listening and talk in the classroom. You should aim to have interaction and open channels of communication in your classroom. This implies that you should give your students opportunities to engage in conversation, to ask questions, to share knowledge. By doing so, you create a two-way communication between yourself and your students. When we speak about communication, the aspect of listening is also important. Your study guide mentions 4 types of listening. These include appreciative listening, informative listening, evaluative listening, and empathetic listening. Your study guide furthermore discusses components of a listening exercise, which includes focusing, comprehending, and responding. In a classroom situation, it is also important for you to be aware of the impediments that could hinder listening. You could also give your students different tips for becoming good listeners, and you should also be aware of the benefits for you as a teacher to be a good listener to your students. I therefore encourage you to refer to Study Unit 8 to read more information about listening and talk in the classroom. I now move on to Study Unit 10, which covers the topic of questioning. Your study guide mentions different types of questions. These include open questions, which doesn't expect a specific type of answer. Closed questions, on the other hand, does expect a particular kind of answer. There are different levels of classroom questions that you could use. These include recall questions, processing questions, and application questions. You will decide on the type of question that you need to use depending on what it is that you would like to assess. There are also different characteristics which will guide you in crafting good questions. In a classroom situation, you may also find that your students ask you certain questions, and your study guide offers you some tips of how to deal with these situations. Finally, your study guide also provides a checklist for you in terms of developing good questions. I now move on to Study Unit 11, which speaks to the aspect of talking as part of group work. If as a teacher you decide you would like to do some group work in your classroom, this study unit is very. I now move on to Study Unit 11, which speaks to the topic of talking as part of group work. If you decide that you would like to do some group work in your classroom, Study Unit 11 offers some very useful tips in this regard. Firstly, it speaks to some factors which you can consider to get your learners to communicate in a group setting. These factors include how to encourage ideas, how to focus on a direction, how to categorize and evaluate ideas, and how to make decisions in group. The study unit also focuses on the roles that contribute to work being completed in a group, as well as how to create positive atmosphere in a group setting. Finally, this study unit teaches you about the challenges as well as solutions that you could use when doing group work in your classroom. I therefore encourage you to read this study unit. This brings me to the end of the first section of my presentation. I will now move on to section B, in which I briefly speak about your upcoming examination. I have prepared a tutorial letter 201 for you. This tutorial letter 201 is available for you to access on my UNISA under the official study materials tab. In this tutorial letter 201, I provide feedback to your assignments and I provide some information about your upcoming examination. My students, during this period, I encourage you to daily access your My Life email account, as the university will be sending you important and pertinent information regarding your examination. I wish you all the best for your examination, and I encourage you to contact me immediately should you not be sure of anything. I am available on my email and I am available on my landline. I wish you all the best, and I'm here to support you. I know that this is a new experience for you, writing your examination fully online, but I am here as your lecturer to support you with any help you may need. I wish you all the best for your examination. Thank you.